Hey, folks, are you breakable or unbreakable? That is the question today. I have a very special new author with us today. Micaela, how you doing today?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fantastic. So it's pronounced Micaela Eberly. And Micaela, you are from what state?
Pennsylvania.
Love it. And we're going to show people right out of the gate this incredible new book here that is called Breakable. And so it's really wow, I see so many things here. We're going to talk about this here. We're going to talk about how we met. We're going to talk about how you never know where a future job's going to come from. We're going to look at your Instagram. But first of all, tell us about this cover. This is quite amazing.
Yeah, that was so when I was in college, was this was just about a year and a half ago. I knew that I was going to work on a poetry book because that was always a dream of mine. And there was just this one random night where I couldn't sleep. I didn't know why. I kept praying, like, come on, God, I just want to go to bed. And it was like maybe 3 a.m. And all of a sudden, this was just in my head. It was so random and so weird. But I just like that title. I was either gonna call it Unbreakable with like the UN written in, or like this Breakable with the UN crossed out. And that was the only thing I didn't have. But every other part of this was just oddly vivid in my mind. It was just the weirdest, most surreal thing. And my roommate at the time, literally, my roommate was I was in bunk beds. I was on the bottom bunk. My roommate was above me, and she's the one who ended up illustrating this for me. So
What?
it was really cool.
That is amazing. If we go to your Instagram, are any of the illustrations there, or are those more photography?
Those are just photography, unfortunately.
That's cool. That's cool. So now, is this her illustration or no?
No, that's just Canva.
Love it. So we have the poems here, Michaela's dot musings, and you have uh wow, when did this, so you're telling me this literally just started recently, or have you also been writing poetry for a while?
I've been writing poetry. I mean, the earliest I can think of is like sixth grade. I'm sure I was writing before that. But this poetry account started actually, I started the day of my high school graduation. So that was in 2020. And then I chose the publication date for this book as my college graduation, just as like a
That's
kind of
cool.
little parallel.
Wow, that's cool. And it's a little bit risky to put yourself on paper. what
Mm-hmm.
what did you have to go through about this?
I think for me, it's always been somehow easier to put myself on paper as opposed to like sharing it verbally. Doesn't make it easy, but it's a lot easier for me. Um, and I think one of the biggest challenges was I worked on a lot of this book in a class in college last year, and we held a lot of workshops. So just like me and a couple other people reading my poems and just dissecting them. I think that was probably the hardest part because especially when I'm sharing something that's really important to me and have someone be like, well, I don't really like this part or something, or like all constructive, all good feedback. But it's still hard to be like, oh wait, maybe that didn't go over like I thought it would, or I really like this line, but they don't. And then knowing that now, like that's out in the world now, I can't change anything I've written. I know there's always going to be a part of me that's like, it's never done. I just had to say it's done, hit publish, and to know that that's just how it is now. And I have to be okay. Like I think about some of the topics I write about are so personal or like so just like showing like anxiety or grief, and to know that some of my like family who don't even know about it, they're reading that, and it's like that's so cool but also so terrifying at the same time.
It's true. I totally hear that. When I wrote Your Secret Name in 2010, a long, long time ago, it was about my story of overcoming self-injury, and I basically handed it to my parents prior to me publishing it. And here's a tip for everybody who's watching, but I don't know if you found this to be helpful, Michaela, but I basically told my parents, I'm honoring you by giving this to you early. It's going to share some really personal things. I want you to know that I'm not changing it. but I want you to be the first to know. And so we can start a conversation and talk about it. Like, that's how I helped my own mind, because as I was writing it and judging what my parents would think if it ever got published, like, I kept hacking myself. Like, I couldn't get the words out as a writer and put the editing hat on of what my parents were going to think.
Sure.
Did you ever think that you would publish this when you were writing it?
Some of the things I didn't like. Like, there was even one poem that I wrote probably just a couple months before, or maybe even a month before. It was one that I'd had in my head, but I was like, can I go that far almost? Like, it was such a personal thing that I had to talk myself into it. And then I had let a friend read it, and she was like, I don't know, this is a little bit far. I think it was hard for her as a friend to read it. But then I showed it to another friend. She was like, no, like, you have to. This is like an important message. But there were some things like that I was like, if you told me a year ago that I was saying some of this stuff, I would not have believed you, because it seems too much, too personal.
That's interesting. So you're basically saying that one friend said you're going too far, and the other friend said you should do it.
Yeah, it was like I think it was really hard for her to read as someone who cared about me. Like, it wasn't even that she thought it was a great poem, but it was hard to read. And I don't want somebody to read something of mine and think this is difficult, or almost like, I don't want it to be triggering or anything for anybody, but I also think it's important to share that stuff, let people know that, like, I think that too, and I'm not alone in having those maybe darker thoughts.
That's great. So I'm looking here, Grace College put this out a little bit, actually December 22. How cool did it feel to be published in the Times Union, legit newspaper?
Yeah, that was really cool, because I'd done work where my work was out there, but a lot of it was not having a byline, because I worked for the Grace marketing department, so I didn't have a byline there. So to have my work actually had a byline, and I was writing about something that was meaningful for me, because I was writing about the French speaking community in Northern Indiana. As a French major, that was really important to me. So not just like a random article that I wrote, but like, I'm telling people's stories, and that was so cool to be able to share that.
So that's how I met you, by the way, at Grace College. Let's tell that story, because I think it's helpful for people to realize that maybe an assignment that might not feel big, like, hey, cover this bald dude with the girl's name story. He's alumni, turned into a job for you, and now we love you on our team. I think I don't know how many doors it's opened for you, but like, what was the first assignment, and what would you tell somebody who gets a quote small assignment?
Yeah, I mean, because I remember that specific assignment, working or writing your story. I remember thinking, like, you had said you did a great job, and then even when you were asking me to be on your team, to me, it was like, that was just like an everyday assignment to make. I didn't think it was anything special or anything really good. I was like, that's just like, I'm sure I can look at that. Right. I was like, I can look at that, and I'm sure pick out a bunch of things that I'm like, oh, that doesn't sound great or anything. So the fact that you still were like, no, that was good, and we want you on our team, I was just completely like shocked. I mean, at the time I don't know, I might have been 19 or 20, I'm not sure. So I just felt like that's a little bit young to have like a big girl job. Like, that felt so weird to me. And I started when I was a first year in college at that job, and just started writing like the emails that we send to prospective students. So to go from that to, I mean, I did amazing things with them, but now to go to here, it's just so surreal to me, because I never would have expected that when I was first starting that job.
Well, and you don't know this, but in 15 minutes, we're going to have a meeting with Sarah where we're going to maybe give you another assignment that's big time. So,
Okay.
yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I believe in people, and I saw a talent in you, and I think talent can always be found, but what can't be found is the right person. And so the good attitude, the hunger to grow, our four core values are growth minded grit, positive optimism, show up, filled up, and servant leadership. And you embody that. So I saw a brand match right away. So I like that. So you didn't think it was big time when you were writing it, but then it opened doors. What do you think this poetry book, what are you hoping it does?
I think the main thing I've always wanted, and I touched on this before, but I want people to read my writing and just almost find pieces of themselves there. I want them to see that they're not alone and that there are other people who struggle with things. Even if it's just one person reads one poem, and that's out of all the people that read it, there's just that one person that really feels seen. I consider the whole thing worth it just because of that one person. And I mean, it's also a way for me to almost feel seen myself, because these thoughts that I've already told you, I didn't think that I'd be sharing, and I wouldn't have shared those in person. It's almost a way for me to leave like a lasting legacy, because that's out there now. And even like when I'm gone, that could still exist in the world. So to know that people could be reading this 50 years down the line, if I'm not here, that's still me there. It just feels so special, I suppose.
Well, I think that's why I love being a publisher and an author. It's like you're creating an eternal asset. I mean, I've been mentored by C.S. Lewis, never met him, but here his words are shaping my reality, or the Apostle Paul, or something thousands of years now, or Jesus. So it is kind of weird that writing is a medium that, and I would say it's more than just like an email. When you put it in a book, it's like it just makes the medium more real. And I would even, as much as I am digital, I mean, yes, audiobooks I think are going to be higher permanence than podcast, right? But
Mm-hmm.
I do feel that, or an ebook is higher permanence than an email. I do feel like a physical book is pretty eternal. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think especially for poetry, because a physical book is something you can mark up and underline and
Yeah.
annotate. And it's, I mean, personally, poetry is one of those that I wouldn't really like to have as an ebook. An audiobook is one thing, because if you can hear the original poet speaking those words, but there's even some of those, like if the words create a certain shape, you can't see that in an audiobook.
Ah,
Just there's I try to play with that a little bit. Or like when I go, like some of my poems that are especially, I guess, deeper,
yeah.
I start to like forego grammar rules, no more
Yes.
punctuation or capitalization. You can't really get that if it's audiobook. You can if it's an ebook, but it's just, it doesn't feel the same, I don't think. There's something about just touching the paper, and that will last. Whereas if I listen to an audiobook once, it's not like my family could just pick that off my shelf and start reading it. That's
Right.
something I have access to. It's a lot more permanent when it's a physical book.
And I've seen authors, even with book openings or unboxing the first time, they like hold it up. They feel like this is real. It's tough to do that with an audiobook, like, here's my phone.
Right.
That's funny. So talk to us about France, because like, you've been there, you studied abroad, are you going back? What's the deal?
Yeah, so I've studied French, the language, ever since 8th grade. Don't even know what it was. I was just always felt really called to it. So it was very easy for me to, in high school, decide. Before I even decided to college, I knew that I was going to study abroad. So I got to go this past fall, and it was just everything I hoped for. I mean, it was absolutely amazing. And I think the thing that made it the most for me was the people, which I think is usually what makes an experience most enjoyable for me. But being able to meet, I was at a French learning program with people
Oh,
from across
nice.
the world. So I was meeting people from, I mean, so many different countries, and like, when am I ever going to get to say that I did that? So even just that alone was so surreal. And studying with my professors, I loved my professors. And so yeah, I am actually going back. I just got my acceptance letter today. I'm going back to the same program that I was just at. So I'll be doing that. I'll be leaving in September, mid-September.
Okay. Okay.
So, and I'll keep working. Don't worry, I'll keep working.
Ah, I love it. Love
Leave.
it.
I plan on taking my little Igniting Souls gear representing.
Yeah. So did you
There.
just get the clothing?
Yes, I did.
Nice. Yeah, yeah. We wanted you to have it. So no, I'm going to France July 10th through the 19th, and I agree. I mean, to me, I don't know how you feel about this, but I can get up in France and then everyone in the States is still sleeping.
Mm-hmm.
And I could even just work an hour or two, get some emails rolling, get some stuff rolling, and then go out and do cycling and come back and like they're just getting up. And
Right.
so all this stuff's been done. So I do feel like that. We got an author, Sunny Kalia, whose book is about offshore teams. And I feel like that concept is becoming more popularized, that a company might not ever shut down because of people in different countries. I don't know what you feel
Mm-hmm.
about that.
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I don't know, it's something like another country presence for a company just makes it feel so much more like legit, I guess. Not that it wouldn't be
Yeah,
legit otherwise, but it's like that's a company that knows what it's doing almost. It's really cool.
it is true. Um, so what's next? I mean, you're obviously headed to France in September. Is this your first book? Do you see yourself writing more books? Are you still writing more poetry? Will you blend poems with photography because of your Instagram? Give us some thoughts.
Sure. Yeah, so this is my first book, unless you count the early Wattpad fan fiction days, which I do not. This is my first book. Um, I mean, I'm always writing poetry, so yeah, but so I wouldn't be surprised if I published another poetry book. I don't have specific plans for it right now, but I mean, I don't think I can stay away from poetry. And I think that's almost been made it even more enjoyable to write poetry the past couple years, knowing like this could be one that makes the cut and gets in the book.
Ah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Otherwise, I would love to publish a fiction book. It's because fictional writing was what got me started into writing. I was doing that. I mean,
Interesting.
early. I mean, I have memories of being in kindergarten, sitting there daydreaming in class, and I've had this one character in my head ever since then that she's journeyed with me this long. So I definitely want to get her story out. I think almost it'll be hard when I eventually decide to, though, because it's like she's so important to me. I have to have a good story for her. But
Is let me ask you this. Is
yeah.
she pieces of you?
Oh, definitely. She's in many ways she's like almost like a healthier version of me, or like the version I want to be. So as I've
That's interesting.
slowly morphed into her, she changes too. Like I am in more ways like her. Like I'm more like who she was when I was in high school. But now because I've grown and I've started to try to become more bold like her, more confident like her, now she continues to change along with me.
All right, I got a title for your next book. Maybe your
Okay.
next poetry book.
Yeah.
The version I want to be.
That's good.
You know, because I mean, you just said it. It's I think honestly, what you just said is actually common, meaning a lot of writers. Like I wrote an Elixir Project story, and even though the main character is female, it's the elements of a personality that I think I am and want to be too.
Mhm.
So I do think you're onto something there. That's interesting. Okay, so where is this place in France exactly? This school thing?
It's in Dijon, France, like
Okay.
Dijon, like the mustard. It's
Yeah.
the capital of Burgundy, specific region there. So it's nice because because it's the capital, it has enough like touristy things to do that it's not just like a small town kind of feel, but also smaller than like Paris or something, so I don't feel like I'm in this big huge city. It's like got the culture, got like the things to do and that, but it also is not like huge big city Paris. So I think it's a really good mix.
That sounds cool. I almost see you as being like Beauty and the Beast thing. Like you're reading books,
Yep.
writing books in another country. That's cool. So what do you get credit there? What is this a job? What are your thoughts?
Yeah, so it's actually a weird time in my life because it's just a program to learn the language. And that was actually a little bit of a difficult choice for me because it's not like I'm going to get a degree or anything because I just graduated. I have my degree. So it felt a little bit weird to say that I'm going back for more schooling when it's not like I'm pursuing a master's or something. It's
Yeah,
just learning. And that was a little bit difficult because it just felt a little bit illogical, but I really felt God telling me to go back, and I looked at a few like actual job options, and nothing was really, I guess, sticking. And this is where I felt the most guidance, and I also felt it might be just one of those situations where God's calling me back, and I have to take the take the leap of faith without really knowing what's going on, and then
I love
he'll like kind of tell me more, I guess, when I get there. Because I
it.
know there's a chance I could just go for a couple of semesters and then just come back to the States and that's it. But I also know that might not be what happens. I might stay there. I don't know yet.
I love it. I think it's a great thing. When I was your age, I did not know the next steps. I feel like sometimes we have to put pressure on people. Like you got to have the 55 steps. I think, in fact, one of our themes for our conference used to be your next best step. Not even your next step, your next best step.
Yeah,
And once you take that step, the world opens up more and then more and more.
for sure. I think that's where I'm at right now. Not really sure. I wish I had a plan. If it were my way, I would have a for sure plan, but I don't think that's what God wants for me right now, which I guess he knows best, but
Oh, yeah,
trust
absolutely.
him.
So, folks, this is the Instagram. Maybe we'll close with this. I am going to drop in the comments here as well, but it's literally Micaela, Micaela's period musings. What is that picture of?
The profile picture?
Yeah.
That's actually me in Dijon, France. So
Yes.
right there, right by where I lived.
That is so cool. Well, I'm going back. Uh, you know, when I was there, I thought, man, this is a beautiful country. The people are super amazing. So the book is called Breakable. It just came out, folks. Get it. You'll learn more about yourself. And it's going to be just a book where it's a journey of discovery of a young lady who, I love what she says, the contradictory fear and hope to be fully known. I think everyone on the planet wants that. And by seeing her, so I almost feel, I tell people all the time, Micaela, people write either as a struggler, a Sherpa, or a sage. Is you kind of writing as a struggler slash Sherpa? What do you think?
What would be a Sherpa in this context?
So, struggler is basically you saying, look, I'm willing to be courageous enough, bold enough to say that there is a obstacle, a mystery, a struggle, and I'm willing to talk about it. That's a struggler. A Sherpa is like, hey, I found a shortcut and I'm willing to come back down the mountain to help other readers get up to the top. And then sage is kind of like you've arrived and people come up to the mountain to sit at your feet. You teach them.
Yeah, I feel like it is more so the first two, more so a struggler, but with a little bit of, hey, I'm starting to figure some things out. I don't have everything figured out,
That's
but
cool.
I've got a little bit of things to share that I hope can pull you guys up with me too.
I love this entrepreneurial journey. I think it's fantastic. And I feel like you are thinking like an entrepreneur by taking risk and innovation, creativity. So great job, Micaela. We're super proud of you.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see everybody.